Good afternoon. Welcome to the Capital Quality Birth to 5 Framework webinar. My name is Sarah Hofkazang, and I'm a Program Specialist in the OSSI Division of Early Learning. On our agenda today, we have the revised timeline for the 2018-2019 Capital Quality Rating and Designation process. Then we will discuss the Capital Quality Rating and Designation itself. And finally, we will go over next steps. Firstly, we'll discuss the revised timeline. OSSI will complete the 2018-2019 Capital Quality Rating and Designation process for all child development facilities participating in Capital Quality, that's Pilot, Group 2, Group 3, and Group 4, according to the revised timeline shown in Table 1 on this slide. For reference, the previous timeline is also shown and marked with strike through. This fall of 2019 is when the Capital Quality Designation will be determined for all child development facilities. At this time, in fall 2019, the tiered reimbursement associated with the subsidy program will also change only if the facility designation is higher than what it was previously. The hold harmless policy will end, and the tiered reimbursement associated with the subsidy program will fully align to the facility's designation, whether that's higher or lower, in fall of 2020 for Pilot and Group 2 providers, in fall of 2021 for Group 3 providers, and in fall of 2022 for Group 4 providers. We're now going to move into a discussion of the Capital Quality Rating and Designation with my colleague Dr. Bonnie McIntosh, the Director of Policy Planning and Research for the OSSI Division of Early Learning.
Great, so we're going to start by talking about some of the definitions that we use when we talk about capital quality. So the first definition is framework, which describes the type of setting, either home or center-based, and the age group of the children served. And it also is used in combination with the metric or measures used during the observation that inform the capital quality rating and designation. We also want to talk about the metric, which, as I just said, is the measure or instrument or indicator used during the observation process to assess the performance or the quality of the early care and education environment. And as I said, it's also described as a measure. The floor is indicated there in red, is the minimum value for which any points are awarded for all metrics used during the observation process, and it indicates the minimum level of performance accessible for a program to receive points in the capital quality rating system. The target is indicated in green, and both of those colors will be used throughout the presentation. The target is the value at which the maximum number of points for a metric are awarded, and it indicates the desired level of performance in achieving the stated outcome in the capital quality rating system. The rating refers to the numeric score and is on a scale from 0 to 100 points, and this is the score that is earned each year when we calculate the facility scores from each of the metrics according to the formula or the framework. And we're going to go through the formulas that are used throughout this presentation. The designation is the facility's level of quality that is based on the points earned in the rating. There are 4 designations: developing, progressing, quality, and high quality. Facilities can also be designated preliminary when they are still in the process of being rated to determine the capital quality designation of developing, progressing, quality, or high quality. During the program year of 2018 to 2019, there were 13.92% of infant and toddler only facilities. There were 8.02% preschool or pre-K only facilities. There were 22.78% child development or child development expanded homes, and more than half, 55.27%, were birth to 5 programs. So we've talked about the frameworks and the metrics used in each of these frameworks, and so this just illustrates both the measures and the frameworks that are used in capital quality. So in an infant and toddler only program, starting on the left side, those facilities would be observed with the infant toddler rating scale revised, ITERS R, measure. The preschool, if you're in a preschool or pre-K only facility, then those facilities would be observed by class, the classroom assessment scoring system, class pre-K only. And birth to 5 facilities would be observed using both of those measures or metrics, the infant toddler rating scale, ITERS R, and the class pre-K. In child development homes and child development expanded homes would be observed using the Family Child Care Environment Rating Scale, revised, or FICRS R for short. So you just saw the pictures describing those measures, and both the infant toddler rating scale, or ITERS R, and the Family Child Care Environment Rating Scale, FICRS R, are both types of environment rating scales, which we also refer to as the ERS. And then we also have the classroom assessment scoring system. That's going to go in just a moment, the class pre-K. And all of these use floors and targets, which were shown in the red and green on the definition slide. And they have floors and targets which are research-based. So in the birth to 5 programs, these facilities are observed using both ITERS and class. So the ITERS and FICRS have items that measure the extent to which early care and education environments promote children's health and safety, and have stimulating interactions with providers that promote language and these stimulating activities. Both ITERS and FICRS metrics utilize 6 subscales, which are then used in the calculation of the total score used in the capital quality rating. These include space and furnishings, personal care routines, listening and talking, activities, interactions, and program structure. There is a 7th subscale, the parents and staff subscale, that is included during the observations, but it is not included in the capital quality rating. Each of these items is scored on a scale of 1 to 7, with higher scores indicating higher quality. So on this slide, we want to show you what the difference between the floors and the targets really represent when you're being observed and looking at your score report. Both the FICRS and the ITERS measure similar things, with the main difference being that the FICRS is designed for use in family child care home, child development home settings, or expanded homes, and the ITERS is designed for use in center-based settings. So if facilities receive scores that are at the lower, with lower scores at the floor, these indicate minimal quality. So things that might be observed include that books are in good repair, so they have books. There's occasional smiling, talking, and affection with children. The schedule meets the needs of most of the children. Attention is on caregiving, and there's a moderate amount of talking. If we were in a classroom, though, or a home setting that had higher scores, closer to the target, then this would indicate good to excellent quality using the ITERS. In these classrooms, books are set up for independent and shared use. There's frequent interaction that is responsive to children's moods and their needs. The schedule is modified to meet children's needs. The supervision is individualized, and there's a wide range of vocabulary use and verbal play with children. In birth to 5 programs, the infant toddler classrooms are observed with ITERS, and the classrooms that serve pre-K age children would be observed with class. The class pre-K measures the quality of teacher-child interactions in these classrooms. The class metric is comprised of 3 domains, with each with its own floor and target. These include emotional support, classroom organization, and instructional support. Each domain is comprised of dimensions that are scored on a scale of 1 to 7, and higher scores for each domain indicate higher quality. For each of these domains, and again, they each have their own floor and target, I'm going to walk through each one separately to describe what these classrooms look like. So in a pre-K classroom, for emotional support, this is capturing teachers' efforts to support children's social and emotional functioning with things like teacher sensitivity and emotional connection. If we were in a classroom that had lower scores that were closer to the floor with a score of 4.5, we might see some evidence that teachers and children share warm and supportive relationships, yet teachers are only sometimes aware of children who need support or attention. But if we were in a classroom that had higher scores closer to the target with a score of 6, for emotional support, we might see evidence of frequent positive communication between teachers and children. Teachers consistently are flexible and go along with children's ideas and organize instruction around children's interests. In the domain of classroom organization for class, this measures classroom-level organization with things like behavior management and routines in the classroom. So for a classroom that has lower scores, closer to the floor, a score of 4.5, we might see some evidence that rules and expectations may be stated clearly, but they're inconsistently enforced by the teachers. In classrooms with higher scores, with scores closer to the target of 6, there's consistent evidence that teachers are proactive, they monitor the classroom effectively to prevent problems from occurring, and they focus on positives and making use of subtle cues. The third domain of class is instructional support. This domain measures the ways in which teachers effectively support cognitive and language development in their classrooms. These are things like language modeling and asking open-ended questions. For this domain, the floor is a score of 2. So in these classrooms with lower scores, there would be evidence that teachers rarely provide scaffolding and ignore problems in understanding. The feedback to children is often perfunctory. They provide examples of responses like yes, no, or that's right, or that's wrong, without much explanation. But in higher quality classrooms for instructional support, with scores closer to 4, and again, this is captured on a scale of 1 to 7, so classrooms could actually score much higher than this, we would see evidence of occasional use of discussions that promote analysis and reasoning. Teachers would sometimes include feedback loops that promote exchanges, but other times not. And in classrooms scored higher, with scores of 5s and 6s and 7s, then we would see more frequent occurrences of these types of interactions. So we've talked about the measures and the ways in which the interactions are captured in these classrooms, and these observations occur each year. Then each of those scores are used in the capital quality rating. 70% of the current year's score is included in the rating, and 30% of the previous year's score is included in the rating. And each of those ratings is then translates into the designation. And as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, the ratings range on a score of points from 0 to 100. And as we see here, if facilities score below the floor on all subscales, they would receive a designation of developing. If they receive scores from 0.01 to 33.33 points across all subscales, they would receive a designation of progressing. If facilities receive a rating of 33.34 66.66 points across all subscales, they would receive a designation of quality. And if they receive a score of 66.67 to 100 points across all subscales, they would receive a designation of high quality.
Now we're going to move into talking about the capital quality rating and how it is calculated for the Birth to 5 framework. And joining us is Dr. Alicia Harmon with the OSSI Division of Data Assessment and Research.
Thanks, Sarah. The capital quality rating for the Birth to 5 framework is determined using the class and ITERS metrics for the current year and previous year relative to the targets and floors. The total number of possible points is based on the number of pre-K and infant toddler classrooms served. For example, if a facility has more pre-K classrooms than infant toddler classrooms, then its capital quality rating will be weighted more heavily by class. And if a facility has more infant toddler classrooms than pre-K classrooms, then its capital quality rating will be weighted more heavily by ITERS. Now, we will use 4 example facilities with stable or changing classroom compositions. The following slides will demonstrate how class and ITERS scores translate into capital quality designations. In the interest of time, we'll only be able to walk through 3 examples during this webinar, but all 4 examples will be included in the presentation slides that we will make available by next week. Now, for the first example, we will look at Birth to 5 facilities with stable classroom compositions. There are 2 types of classroom observations in each year during the 2-year rating period. In this example, this Birth to 5 facility has 2 infant toddler classrooms observed with ITERS and 4 preschool classrooms observed with class. This Birth to 5 facility's current year's scores are presented in blue below, and previous year's scores are presented in purple. To calculate the capital quality rating, you start by calculating the ITERS portion of the rating for each year. In this example, the facility earned the following scores. Their current year's score, they received a 5.5. In the previous year's score, they received a 5. The target for this metric is 6, and the floor is 3. The following formula is used to calculate the points earned for infant toddler classrooms observed with ITERS. We multiply 70 times the results of the current year's score minus the floor divided by the target minus the floor. We add this to the result of 30 times the previous year's score minus the floor divided by the target minus the floor. So to calculate the framework points earned for infant toddler classrooms with ITERS, the current year's points and previous year's points can be calculated separately as illustrated below. We'll start with the steps in the parentheses first. So we'll insert the current year's score 5.5 minus the floor, which is 3, and the target, which is 6, minus 3, which is the floor. And then we'll calculate. And so taking 5.5 minus 3 equals 2.5. 6 minus 3 equals 3, which will equal 2.5 divided by 3. They're ready to multiply 70 times 2.5 divided by 3, which equals 58.33. Then we do a similar approach for the previous year. We'll take the previous year's score of 5 minus the floor of 3 divided by the target, which is 6, minus 3, which will result in 2 divided by 3. And we'll multiply 30 times 2 divided by 3 equals 20. So in sum, the current year ITERS points earned is 58.33. The previous year ITERS points earned is 20. And we'll be able to. Next, the class portion of the rating is calculated for each domain and for each year. The possible points by year are calculated using scores from the 3 class domains: emotional support, classroom organization, and instructional support. Now, the maximum possible points that can be earned for each class domain is 23.33 points for the current year, for a total of 70 possible points for all class domains in the current year. The maximum possible points that can be earned for each class domain is 10 points for the previous year, for a total of 30 possible points in the previous year. Therefore, each Birth to 5 facility can earn a total of 100 possible points for class across all 3 domains and across the current and previous year. Each domain and class has a different floor and target, which is presented in the tables below. In this example, the facility earned the following scores. For emotional support, the current year's score is 5. The previous year's score is 4.8. The target for emotional support is 6, and the floor is 4.5. For classroom organization, the current year's score is 4.4. The previous year's score is 4. The target is 6, and the floor is 4.5. For instructional support, the current year's score is 2.56. The previous year's score is 2. The target is 4, and the floor is 2. The following formula is used to calculate the points earned in each domain of class. So we'll multiply 23.33 times the result of the current year's score minus the floor, divided by the target minus the floor. We add this to the result of 10 times the previous year's score minus the floor, divided by the target minus the floor. So we will use the same formula for each class, each domain of class. To calculate the framework points earned for class, the current year's points and previous year's points are calculated separately for each domain as illustrated below. We'll begin with what's in the parentheses first. So the current year's score is 5, minus the floor is 4.5, divided by the target minus the floor, 6 minus 4.5, which will result in the next row, 0.5 divided by 1.5. And we'll multiply that by 23.33, which will equal 7.78. We'll do the same thing for the previous year's score. We'll insert the previous year's score of 4.8 minus the floor of 4.5, divided by the target of 6 minus the floor of 4.5, which will equal 0.3 divided by 1.5, which will multiply by 10, which will give you 2. So to recap, the current year class emotional support points earned is 7.78, and the previous year class emotional support points earned is 2. And we'll go on to the next domain. Classroom organization. We'll insert the current year score, 4.4, minus the floor, 4.5, minus the target of 6, minus the floor, 4.5, and then calculate, which will be negative 0.1 divided by 1.5. Multiply that by 23.33 equals negative 1.56, which will translate into 0 points. Insert the previous year's score, which is 4, minus the floor, 4.5, divided by the target, which is 6, minus the floor, which is 4.5, which results in negative 0.5 divided by 1.5, which will multiply by 10, equaling negative 3.33 points. Because it's below 0, negative 3.33 points also gives you 0 points. A facility cannot earn points when they score below the floor. This facility earns 0 points for the current year and 0 points for the previous year for classroom organization. Last domain, instructional support. We'll insert the current year score of 2.56 minus the floor of 2, divided by the target of 4 minus the floor of 2, resulting in 0.56 divided by 2, which will multiply by 23.33, equaling 6.53. Do the same thing for the previous year's score, where we will take the previous year's score of 2 minus the floor of 2, divided by the target, which is 4, minus the floor, which is 2, which will result in 0 divided by 2. Multiply that by 10, that equals 0. So to sum, the current year class instructional support points earned is 6.53, and the previous year class instructional support points earned is 0. In the next step, the points earned from each class domain are combined to calculate the total current year class points and total previous year class points. So begin with the first row, current year, emotional support, you earned 7.78 points, plus 0 points for classroom organization, plus 6.53 points for instructional support, totaling 14.31 points for the current year. For the previous year, you earned 2 points in emotional support, 0 points for the classroom organization previous year, and 0 points for instructional support, totaling 2 points for the previous year. Next up, we are going to weight points earned based on classroom composition in the Birth to 5 facility. The final step of calculating the Birth to 5 facility's rating is to combine the facility's points earned from the ITER scores and the points earned from the class scores and weight them by the proportion of infant, toddler, and preschool pre-K classrooms served in the facility. In this example, during both the current and previous years, the classroom composition at this facility includes 2 infant, toddler classrooms that were observed by ITERs and 4 preschool classrooms that were observed by class. There's a total of 6 classrooms that have observations. So for infant, toddler classrooms, you could do 2 out of the total number of classrooms, which is 6. And for pre-K classrooms, a total of 4 over 6 total classrooms. The proportion is 4 divided by 4 over 6, and the infant toddler classroom proportion is 2 over 6. 2 plus 4 is the total number of classrooms, which is 6. Next slide, we will show how we combine this all together. So in this example, 2 of the 6 classrooms in the facility are infant toddler classrooms that were observed by ITERs in each year. So the ITERs total points earned in the current year, 58.33, are multiplied by the proportion of infant toddler classrooms, 2 out of 6, that have ITERs observations, and the previous year point, 20, are multiplied by the proportion of infant toddler classrooms, which is 2 out of 6. We multiply that together, so 19.44, which is the result of 58.33 times 2 over 6, plus the previous year, which is 20 times 2 divided by 6, 6.67. Add those two together equals 26.11. So the weighted ITERs points earned, 26.11. In this example, 4 of the 6 classrooms in the facility are preschool pre-K classrooms that were observed by class in each year. So the class total points earned in the current year points, 14.31, are multiplied by the proportion of preschool pre-K classrooms, which is 4 out of 6. Added to the previous year point, which is 2, multiplied by the proportion of preschool pre-K classrooms with class observations, which is 4 out of 6. So we'll take 14.31 times 4 divided by 6 equals 9.54, plus 2 times 4 divided by 6 equals 1.33. We add those two together, and you get 1087 class points earned. So finally, the weighted points earned from ITERs, which is 2611 points, and the weighted points earned from class, 1087 points, are added together for a total of 36.98 points. Which equates into a capital rating or capital quality rating of 36.98. This translates to a quality designation, meaning this facility would earn a capital quality designation of quality. We look at the ranges for quality, 33.34 through 66.66. So we see that this facility's score of 36.98 fits into the quality designation. Now we'll go on to the next example of a Birth to 5 facility with changing classroom composition. There are 2 types of classroom observations in each year during a 2-year rating period. So for this example, this Birth to 5 facility has 2 infant toddler classrooms observed with ITERs and 4 preschool pre-K classrooms observed with class in the current year. This Birth to 5 facility's current year scores are presented in blue. In the previous year, this Birth to 5 facility has 3 infant toddler classrooms observed with ITERs and 3 preschool pre-K classrooms observed with CLASS. This facility's previous year scores are presented in purple. To calculate the capital quality rating, start by calculating the ITERs-R portion of the rating for each year. In this example, the facility earned the following scores. For the current year score, they earned 5. For the previous year's score, they earned a 4.8. The target for this metric is 6, and the floor is 3. Again, the following formula is used to calculate the points earned for infant toddler classrooms observed with ITERs. Multiply 70 times the result of current year score minus the floor, divided by the target minus the floor. Similar thing for the previous year's score, we multiply 30 times the previous year's score minus the floor, divided by the target minus the floor. We'll add those two results together to get total points earned. To calculate the framework points earned for infant toddler classrooms with ITERs, the current year's points and previous year's points are calculated separately as illustrated below. We'll begin with the parentheses first. You insert the current year's score of 5.0 minus the floor of 3 and the target divided by the target 6 minus the floor of 3, which equals 2 divided by 3. We'll multiply that by 70 equals 46.67. We'll take the same steps for the previous year's score. So we'll insert the previous year's score 4.8 minus the floor of 3 divided by the target of 6 minus the floor of 3, which will equal 1.8 divided by 3 multiplied by 30 equals 18. So in sum, the current year ITERs points earned is 46.67, and the previous year ITERs points earned is 18. Now we'll do the class portion of the rating, which is calculated for each domain and for each year. The possible points by year are calculated using scores from the 3 class domains: emotional support, classroom organization, and instructional support. The maximum possible points that can be earned for each class domain is 23.33 points for the current year, for a total of 70 possible points for all class domains in the current year. The maximum possible points that can be earned for each class domain is 10 points for the previous year, for a total of 30 possible points in the previous year. Therefore, each Birth to 5 facility could earn a total of 100 possible points per class across all 3 domains and across the current and previous year. As each domain of class has a different floor and target, which is presented in the tables below. In this example, the facility earned the following scores. For emotional support, the current year score is 5.5, the previous year score is 5.1, the target is 6, and the floor is 4.5. The classroom organization current year score is 5, the previous year score is 5, the target is 6, and the floor is 4.5. For instructional support, the current year score is 2, and the previous year score is 1.8. The target is 4, and the floor is 2. And the following formula is used to calculate the points earned in each domain of class. Multiply 23.33 times the result of current year score minus the floor divided by the target minus the floor. Added to 10 times the result of previous year score minus the floor divided by the target minus the floor. To calculate the framework points earned for class, the current year's points and previous year's points are calculated separately for each domain as illustrated below. So begin with the current year's score of 5.5 minus the floor of 4.5 divided by the target of 6 minus 4.5, which will equal 1 divided by 1.5. We'll multiply that by 23.33, which will equal 15.55. We'll do the same for the previous year. The previous year score is 5.1 minus the floor 4.5 divided by the target of 6 minus the floor 4.5, which will equal 0.6 divided by 1.5. Multiply that by 10 equals 4. So the current year class emotional support points earned is 15.55, and the previous year class emotional support points earned is 4. We'll do the same for classroom organization. So we'll plug in the current year score as 5 minus the floor of 4.5. The target of 6 minus the floor of 4.5, which will equal 0.5 divided by 1.5. We'll multiply that by 23.33, which will equal 7.78. We'll do the same for the previous year's score. So we'll take the previous year's score of 5 minus the floor of 4.5 divided by the target of 6 minus 4.5, which will equal 0.5 divided by 1.5, multiply that by 10, and that equals 3.33. Don't sum the current year classroom organization points earned is 7.78, and the previous year classroom organization points earned is 3.33. For instructional support, we'll do the same thing. The current year score is 2 minus the floor of 2, divided by the target of 4 minus the floor of 2, which will equal 0 divided by 2. Multiply that by 23.33, and that will equal 0. For the previous year score, 1.8 minus the floor of 2, divided by the target of 4 minus the floor of 2, will equal negative 0.2 divided by 2. Multiply that by 10 equals a negative 1, which will translate into 0 points, as the facility cannot earn points when they score below the floor. So the facility earns 0 points for the current year and 0 points for the previous year for instructional support. In the next step, the points earned from each class domain are combined to calculate the total current year class points and total previous year class points. So for current year emotional support, they earned 15.55 points, plus the current year classroom organization of 7.78 points. They have 0 points earned from instructional support, so the total is 23.33 points. For the previous year, for emotional support, they earned 4 points. For classroom organization, they earned 3.33 points, and they earned 0 points for instructional support. We add that all together, that equals 7.33 points. So in sum, the current year class points earned is 23.33, and the previous year class points earned is 7.33. The final step in calculating the first of 5 facilities rating is to combine the facilities points earned from the ITER scores and the points earned from the class scores and weigh them by the proportion of infant, toddler, and preschool pre-K classrooms served in the facility. In this example, during the current year, the classroom composition of this facility includes 2 infant, toddler classrooms that were observed by ITERs and 4 preschool pre-K classrooms that were observed by class. There's a total of 6 classrooms that have observations. During this previous year, the classroom composition of this facility includes 3 infant, toddler classrooms that were observed by ITERs and 3 preschool pre-K classrooms that were observed by class. There's a total of 6 classrooms that have observations. So for this example, 2 of the 6 classrooms in the facility are infant, toddler classrooms that were observed by ITERs in the current year. So the ITER's total points earned in the current year is 46.67, is multiplied by the proportion of current year infant, toddler classrooms, 2 out of 6, that have ITER's observations. 3 of the 6 classrooms in the facility are infant, toddler classrooms that were observed by ITERs in the previous year. So the ITER's total points earned in the previous year, 18, are multiplied by the proportion, 3 out of 6, of previous year infant, toddler classrooms. This is then added together, resulting in 24.56. So we'll take 46.67 times 2 out of 6 equals 15.56 plus 18 times 3 out of 6, which will equal 9. Those added together equals 24.56 for the weighted ITERs points earned. For this example, 4 of the 6 classrooms in the facility are preschool pre-K classrooms that were observed by class in the current year. So the class total points earned in the current year, 23.33, multiplied by the proportion of current year pre-K preschool classrooms that have class, 4 out of 6. 3 of the 6 classrooms in the facility are preschool pre-K classrooms that were observed by class in the previous year. So the class total points earned in the previous year is 7.33. Which is multiplied by 3 out of 6 for the previous year preschool pre-K classroom. This is then added together, so we'll take 23.33 times 4 divided by 6 equals 15.55 plus 7.33 times 3 divided by 6 equals 3.67. Those two added together equals 19.22 for the weighted class points earned. Finally, the weighted points earned from ITERs, 24.56 points, and the weighted points earned from class, 19.22 points, are added together for a total of 43.78. This rating of 43.78 points translates to a quality designation, meaning this facility would earn a capital quality designation of quality. You'll see here that the rating of 43.78 falls really in the quality range of 33.34 to 66.66. So for the next example, our third example, the birth to 5 facilities is changing classroom composition. So only one type of classroom observation in 1 year during a 2-year rating period. In this example, this birth to 5 facility has 4 infant toddler classrooms observed with ITERs and 1 preschool pre-K classroom observed with class in the current year. This birth to 5 facility's current year scores are presented in blue. In the previous year, this birth to 5 facility has 5 infant toddler classrooms observed with ITERs and no preschool pre-K classrooms observed with class. This facility's previous year scores are presented in purple. To calculate the capital quality rating, start by calculating the ITERs portion of the rating for each year. In this example, the facility earned the following scores. The current year score is 4.8. The previous year score is 4.5. The target for this metric is 6, and the floor is 3. The following formula is used to calculate the points earned for infant and toddler classrooms observed with ITERs. Take 70 and multiply that by the result of current year score minus floor divided by the target minus the floor. We'll add that to 30 times the previous year score minus the floor divided by the target minus the floor. To calculate the framework points earned for infant and toddler classrooms with ITERs, the current year's points and previous year's points are calculated separately as illustrated below. Take the current year score 4.8 minus the floor of 3 divided by the target of 6 minus the floor of 3, which will equal 1.8 divided by 3. Multiply that by 70, which will equal 42. And for the previous year's score, we'll take the 4.5 minus the floor of 3 divided by the target of 6 minus the floor of 3, which will equal 1.5 divided by 3. Multiply that by 30, that equals 15. So the current year points earned is 42, and the previous year points earned is 15. Next, the class portion of the rating is calculated for each domain and for each year. The possible points by year are calculated using scores from the 3 class domains. And I will just jump down to where we're plugging in the new numbers. So for emotional support, the current year score is 5.5. The previous year score is not applicable. They did not have previous year score for emotional support. The target is 6, and the floor is 4.5. For classroom organization, the current year score is 5, and the previous year score is NA. The target is 6, and the floor is 4.5. For instructional support, the current year score is 2, and the previous year score, again, is NA. The target for this one is 4, and the floor is 2. We'll use the same formula as we have used throughout to calculate the domains. We'll walk through 23.33 times the current year score minus the floor divided by the target minus the floor. We'll add that to 10 times the previous year score minus the floor divided by the target minus the floor. So to calculate the framework points earned for a class, we will begin with emotional support. The current year score is 5.5 minus the floor 4.5 divided by the target of 6 minus the floor 4.5, which will equal 1 divided by 1.5, which will multiply by 23.33, which will equal 15.55. Now, this facility has no previous year's class score, so there are no scores to calculate for this domain of class for the previous year. So they will get a current year class emotional support points of 15.55 and no points for the emotional support points earned for the previous year. For classroom organization, we will take the current year score of 5 minus the floor 4.5 divided by the target of 6 minus the floor 4.5, which will equal 0.5 divided by 1.5, multiply that by 23.33, which will equal 7.78. This facility, again, has no previous year's class score, so there are no scores to calculate for this domain either. Their current year's classroom organization points earned in total is 7.78. For instructional support, we'll plug in the current year score of 2 minus the floor of 2, divided by the target of 4 minus the floor of 2, which will result in 0 divided by 2, which will multiply by 23.33, which will equal 0. The current year class instructional support points earned is 0, and again, the facility had no previous year class score, so there's no score to calculate for this domain. The next step, the points earned from each class domain are combined to calculate the total current year class points and total previous year class points, which in this case are not applicable. So the current year will add up emotional support, 15.55 points, plus the classroom organization of 7.78 points. There are no points earned for instructional support, so the total is 23.33 points. They did not have a class assessment last year, so there's no reason to calculate in it. So current year class points earned 23.33. Final step in calculating this birth to 5 facilities rating is to combine the facilities points earned from the ITER scores and the points earned from the class scores and weigh them by the proportion of infant, toddler, and preschool pre-K classrooms served in the facility. So for this example, during the current year, the classroom composition of this facility includes 4 infant, toddler classrooms and 1 preschool pre-K classroom. There's a total of 5 classrooms that have observations. During this previous year, the classroom composition at this facility includes 5 infant, toddler classrooms and no preschool classrooms that were observed by class. And there's a total of 5 classrooms that have observations. So in sum, for the current year, infant, toddler classrooms, their proportion is 4 out of 5. And for the previous year, the proportion of infant, toddler classrooms is 5 out of 5. For the preschool classrooms, the current year proportion is 1 out of 5. And the previous year is 0 out of 5. So for this example, 4 of the 5 classrooms in the facility are infant, toddler classrooms that were observed by ITERs in the current year. So the ITER's total points earned in the current year points is 42, multiplied by the proportion, which is 4 out of 5, of infant, toddler classrooms. We'll add that to 5 of the 5 classrooms in the facility are infant, toddler classrooms. So multiply that by their previous year points of 15. So in sum, we'll take 42 times 4 out of 5, which equals 33.6, plus 15 times 5 out of 5, which equals 15. Sum those two together, it will equal 48.6. So the total weighted ITERs points earned is 48.6. In this example, one of the 5 classrooms in this facility is a preschool pre-K classroom. In the current year, so the class total points earned in the current year is 23.33, which is multiplied by the proportion of current year preschool pre-K classrooms, which is 1 out of 5. None of the 5 classrooms in the facility are preschool pre-K classrooms that were observed in the previous year, so there were no class total points earned in the previous year. The points are NA, and the proportion of previous year preschool pre-K classrooms that have observations is 0 out of 5. So multiply 23.33 times 1 divided by 5, which will equal 4.67, and that will be your total class points earned because the previous year points are not applicable. So finally, the weighted points earned from ITERs is 48.6 points, and the weighted points earned from class, 4.67 points, are added together for a total of 53.27 points. This rating, 53.27 points, translates to a quality designation, meaning this facility would earn a capital quality designation of quality. As we see here on the slide, 53.27 falls between the ranges of 33.34 and 66.66, which means it will get a quality designation.
We're now going to skip over example D in the interest of time and move into next steps, but the slides for example D will be available with the materials from the webinar to be posted on the OSSI website within 1 week. We're now going to move into next steps, and joining us for next steps is Michelle Reed, Program Manager for Capital Quality and Child Care Resource and Referral in the OSSI Division of Early Learning.
Thank you, Sarah. Next steps, all of the Capital Quality Framework specific rating calculation webinars will be posted to the OSSI Capital Quality website listed here on the slide once recorded. Providers will also have an opportunity to validate the information so we can have the highest level of accuracy and transparency with the information. Validation period will be from September 16th through September 30th, 2019, and this provides an opportunity for the providers to validate 2018-2019 capital quality ratings, designations, and other information that may be shared on the capital quality profile. An important date and time to keep in mind is 5 p.m. on September 30th, 2019, when submissions of concerns about accuracy of the information or the calculation of the capital quality rating are due. October 15, 2019, OSSI will respond no later than this date to all concerns raised. And please know that it is critical that providers adhere to the September 30th deadline to submit concerns. OSSI will not be responding to concerns raised after September 30th, 2019. And that validation is a passive process, so no submissions of concerns are required. However, we do encourage providers to review their information. Some other steps available will be technical assistance. Ensure your contact information is accurate on file with OSSI. If you need to update your contact information, contact your respective licensing specialist. Sign up for technical assistance during the validation time period. Review the validation guide, which is going to be available soon in September. Quality facilitators and education service monitors can support assigned facilities during the validation time period. Attend webinars on the validation process and QuickBase apps during the week of September 9th through 13th. And attend office hours. We will be scheduling those so you can appear in person with office staff and have your specific questions answered.
We will move into our questions portion once we conclude the recording. I would like to thank everyone for joining us today. If you have any questions regarding the content of this webinar, please do contact us at capitalquality@dc.gov, and a member of the Capital Quality team will respond. And now I'm going to